The food is awful. The house is dirty. Is Lily even a woman? Scott's yelling echoes throughout the house. Ever since my husband Scott retired 6 months ago, he spends his days doing nothing at home and goes out to drink every night. As a result, our already strained marriage has worsened significantly. I'm busy with Sarah's care and my part-time job. It's hard to manage the household chores. Can't you help out a bit? I've fulfilled my duty admirably till now. Housework is a woman's job. Then how about we put Sarah in a nursing home? She even wants that. That's a waste of money. Why pay extra when we have a caretaker like you? How many times have we had this conversation? Scott acts like a typical henpecked husband, but he's a male chauvinist. I'm Lily, married for 35 years. I've always endured, even thought this was normal. But recently, my views have changed. I envy younger couples talking about equality and mutual respect. Now, at 60, caring for my mother-in-law Sarah and working part-time, I question this life of just going through the motions. Yet I resign myself, thinking there's no way that I can leave and survive on my own now. Making delicious meals and keeping the house clean, that's a housewife's job. You're the only one in the world so lazy. I've raised 2 kids, and while I might not be perfect at housekeeping, I've done my best. Isn't that enough? Not enough. With only the old age pension, life will get tougher, so you need to work more part-time. Stop joking. If I work more, I can't take care of Sarah. Will you take care of her, Scott? Why should I do it? Balance both. After all, you started the part-time job because you liked it, right? You were the one who said I should earn at least my own food expenses. I've forgotten such old matters. That was about 5 years after our second son was born. Scott suddenly became angry about our expenses, insultingly saying my food costs were a waste. As the boys were in school and preschool, I took up a part-time job, which was indeed a change of pace from the repetitive life of home, preschool, and supermarket. But now the situation is different. Since Sarah became dependent 3 years ago and moved in with us, I told Scott I wanted to quit my part-time job, but he dismissed it as laziness and forced me to juggle both work and care. I had hoped he might help around the house once he retired, but I was too optimistic. He doesn't even visit his own mother's room or show any concern for her. I feel sorry for Sarah, being ignored by her own son. One day, I made a request to Scott, not really expecting much. I want to buy a bed for Sarah. I'm not young anymore, and it hurts my back every time I lift her. With a care bed, it would be easier for both of us. I heard we can get one for about $1,000. Could you consider it? Why spend so much time on someone who won't be around much longer? Don't talk like that. What about renting one? I heard it's less than $100 a month. If she lives for a year, that's over $1,000. What a waste, Scott said dismissively, then went to the fridge and started drinking beer, even though it was still early evening. Isn't she your mom? Don't you want her to spend her final years comfortably? If it were a young person with a future, I'd see the value in investing, but she's at the end of her life. It's pointless. You're terrible. The retirement allowance was deposited, wasn't it? Why not give back a little? That retirement allowance is gone. There's nothing left. I couldn't believe it. Scott had retired from his company only 6 months ago. I never bothered to ask how he was spending the money, assuming it was none of my business. But I didn't expect it to be gone already. What did you spend it on? It was a substantial amount, right? That's none of your concern. Lily, you weren't thinking you'd get any of it, were you? Of course not. My friends talk about family trips, but I never expect anything like that. Traveling with you would be like a punishment. Too boring. He must have received nearly $100,000, and it's all gone. Although he goes out to drink every night, it's hard to believe he could spend so much in a small town's small pub. There are no signs of any major purchases either. While it may not concern me, I do still wonder. That night, as usual, Scott said, "I don't want dinner," dismissively, and went out to drink. A few days later, I had an errand for the store manager at my part-time job and was walking home by a different route when I ran into the manager of the pub Scott frequents. I started to thank her for always taking care of Scott. Scott is always there. I hope it's not too much trouble every night. Oh dear, I'd love for him to come every night, but Scott hasn't been here in about 2 years. What? He used to come at least once a month, but he goes out every night saying he's going to your place. Oh dear, Scott must be up to no good. Is there another woman involved? Impossible. Who would bother with such a grumpy man? Men are unpredictable. They can be sweet and different with other women. After saying goodbye to the pub manager, I stood there dumbfounded for a while. Him? That can't be true. The more I thought about it, the more impossible it seemed. I can't imagine Scott being kind to anyone else. But if there is another woman, that would explain why the retirement allowance disappeared so quickly. If he's lying about going out for drinks, the only reason must be an affair. All sorts of speculations swirled in my head. I decided to make a decisive phone call to my eldest son, Dylan. Mom, what's up all of a sudden? I need to borrow $5,000 without any questions. That's unusual for you, Mom, to ask about money. I'll pay it back. I'll explain why later, please. Okay, I will. Really? I've been aware in my own way that you don't have your own money and have been oppressed by Dad. I'm sorry I couldn't do anything for you even after growing up. I've been relying on you as an adult. That's not true. The best thing for me is seeing you and your brother become independent. I'll send the money tomorrow. Thank you. I am blessed with a kind son. My parenting wasn't wrong. That realization encouraged me. The next day, I went to a detective agency and requested an investigation on Scott. Since he leaves the house at almost the same time every night, the tailing should be relatively easy, and the results should come quickly, they said. I was somewhat relieved. But after actually making the request, I started acting suspiciously myself. Maybe it was guilt, but the more I tried to act natural, the more unnatural I became, and Scott became suspicious. Lily, something is off with you. Are you sick? What a nuisance you are. Pay for your own treatment, will you? I'm fine. I won't cause any trouble. All right then. I was grateful. For the first time, I found comfort in his spitefulness. A week later, I went back to the detective agency and was shocked by the results I saw. The report, complete with photos, detailed everything. Scott entering a beautiful apartment he had rented about 6 months ago. An hour later, he emerged hand in hand with a woman in her 30s. They spent about an hour and a half at a nearby upscale restaurant, racking up an $800 bill, then stopped at a supermarket to buy a lot of groceries. On weekends, they went on trips, staying in hotels, costing $1,500 a night. I was speechless at the reality before me. I couldn't remember the detective's words after a certain point. What have I been doing? I endured back pain, did the caregiving, worked part-time, and took care of everything at home. I didn't indulge in luxuries, haven't bought anything I wanted in decades, and resisted buying tempting sweets on my way home from work. Of course, I never went on trips. I supported the children when they started resenting Scott's harsh attitude. I alone managed their rebellious phases, school ceremonies, and events. But in the end, this is what awaited me. I felt like all emotions were draining away, like the tide receding from the shore. That day, I returned home later than usual from my part-time job, and Scott immediately lashed out at me. Where have you been? Mom's been calling for water since earlier. Hurry up and give it to her. I'm not going out tonight. Get dinner ready. His loud, pointless noise didn't bother me somehow. It was just like a noisy insect. No need to respond to an insect. I began preparing dinner. I fed Sarah first, then made my own meal. Though I felt something constantly nagging nearby, I enjoyed my dinner alone. I indulged a bit today, with steak and dessert from a famous cake shop. Wow, this is delicious. Can't believe I never bought from this shop in 10 years. Hey, Lily, are you listening? Answer me! I only did laundry for Sarah and myself. There seemed to be something else, but it must have been my imagination. I bought some luxurious aroma oil today. Looking forward to it. You're doing this on purpose, right? It's not going to scare me, you know. Maybe I'll relax and watch some TV. I'm watching the news. Don't change it. Oh, that actor is charming. I haven't had the luxury to watch dramas recently. Ignoring me, is that your strategy, Lily? Maybe I'll enjoy the aroma for a bit. I went to the bedroom and for the first time since getting married, truly enjoyed the expensive aroma I had bought. Then, feeling a bit relaxed, I decided to have a beer from the fridge. It's been a while. Beer is the best. Hey, have you finished cleaning the shower room? Don't tell me you haven't done it. I got a bit tipsy from drinking after so long. Time to sleep, I guess. After turning off the TV and lights, I headed to the bedroom. Lily, don't turn off the lights while I'm still up. I heard something, but I guess it's just a bug flying around. When I got into bed, I felt strangely at ease, almost ready to fall asleep immediately. It might be the first time since I was a child that I felt this peaceful drifting off to sleep. I felt light, as if a shackle had been removed. In my world, Scott has become an invisible presence, like air. So I started living as if it were just Sarah and me. About a week later, Scott, reaching his limit, apologized to me for the first time. Forgive me, I was wrong. That was the moment I felt the presence of a housemate I hadn't noticed before. Oh, are you here? Stop ignoring me. I'm tired of doing my own laundry and cooking. I won't take care of you anymore, no matter how much you apologize. What's gotten into you? Suddenly ignoring me? Are you mad about leaving Sarah's care all to you? I'm sorry about that. I'll help from now on. It's not about that. Then why are you doing this? Well, you have someone to take care of you, don't you? What? The apartment around the corner from the cafe, the one in the back? Sophia, 35 years old. How do you know about that? You bought it for her with your retirement allowance. How kind. No, that's... Scott seems to be trembling somewhat, probably shaken by the realization that I know everything. Tomorrow, both you and Sophia will hear from my lawyer. What's that about? It's a claim for compensation in the divorce trial. $20,000 from each of you. Wait, Sophia will surely be surprised. She shouldn't think she can get involved with someone else's husband and have everything end smoothly. For 35 years, I've been your silent slave, Scott. I don't ask for gratitude, just don't interfere with my new life. It was just a fling with Sophia. A fling? And you buy her an apartment? You never gave me a dime. I only partly paid for the apartment. I still have money. Let's go on a trip. Where do you want to go? Scott's desperate excuses almost made me laugh. It's too late for him to panic now. I've made up my mind. A trip with me would be a punishment, right? No need for your concern. I'll be out of this house in 3 days. What about Mom? You said you'd take care of her from now on, didn't you? I will, but I can't do it alone. I'm smaller and weaker than you, Scott, but I managed all by myself. I can't start my day without your breakfast. Please, I want the omelet you make. Scott often complained about such simple breakfasts, leaving them untouched. I doubt he even remembers that. Ask Sophia to make it. Sophia can't cook. She knows how to warm up store-bought food. I don't want to hear complaints about your mistress. Mom will feel lonely. She won't want me to care for her. Sarah said she felt terrible seeing how you treated me these last 3 years. She wants me to start a new life without worry. She's fine going to a care facility or relying entirely on you. But Dylan and Kevin support me. You asked Dylan and Kevin for help? They're family. They even found me a new apartment. The apartment is small but clean and close to Dylan and Kevin's homes, and I really like it. I'm looking forward to living there soon. I don't want to be disturbed by such a person. Please don't leave. By the way, retirement allowance is also subject to property division. According to the lawyer, your company's standard amount is about $200,000. I'll be claiming my half. There's hardly any left, only about 10 grand. Spending lavishly on fancy restaurants every night will deplete money quickly. Simple math. Were you that foolish, Scott? You can say what you want. I won't get angry anymore, and I'll do the housework and caregiving. I'll even break up with Sophia, so please don't divorce me. Your resolve, Scott, doesn't move my heart anymore. It seems Scott realized too late that his habit of ignoring my voice has now come back to haunt him. I think he understands that no matter what happens in the future, there's no chance of us getting back together. Scott, looking dejected, acknowledged this and left the house. This was right after he said he would take care of Sarah. I can't leave such an irresponsible person in charge. That night, Scott did not return. I had already been looking for a care facility for Sarah, so I immediately called to start the admission process. Sarah agreed to it, and we spent the next 3 days preparing our move. Even packing felt enjoyable, knowing I was finally leaving this place. On the day I was moving out, Scott returned. "Are you really leaving? Thank you for everything. Become sarcastic now, have you? Sarah will be entering a care facility. I can't leave her in your care. Please visit her at least." "Understood. Then I'll be going." As I was about to leave, Scott grabbed my arm to stop me. Just his touch filled me with discomfort, and I instinctively shook it off. He looked at me almost in tears. "Sophia dumped me." "I see. It's too hard to live alone at this age. There are many people like that. Don't be so dependent." Then suddenly he began apologizing at the front door. "Please don't abandon me." I glanced at him and then got into the cab I had called. If he thought a simple apology would appease my anger, he must have considered me beneath him until the very end. Later, I heard from the lawyer that Sophia is refusing to pay, but I won't give up. Scott sent the remaining $10K, but it's not enough, so I will continue to demand more. I heard that Scott is now working as a security guard at a construction site, unable to just relax and live off the old age pension. It's healthier than drinking beer and getting fat during the day. Not that I care about his health. In my new room, I decorate with flowers and enjoy treats without any hesitation. Dylan and Kevin often visit, so I don't feel lonely. I'm ready to enjoy my second life, feeling reborn.
I never expected my life to turn into a dramatic showdown, but here I was, standing in disbelief as Leo, my husband of 8 years, hurled an accusation that left me speechless. "Elaine, why did you push my mom? She's in the hospital with a broken bone because of you." This was insane. Meredith, his mother, had become a constant source of stress in my life, but to think that she would stoop to such blatant lies was unfathomable. I was Elaine Sanders, a 38-year-old part-time employee at a local bookstore, known for my calm demeanor, yet here I was, painted as a villain. "I haven't even seen Meredith this month, Leo. How could I possibly have pushed her?" I tried to keep my voice steady, but it trembled with a mixture of anger and disbelief. Leo's face was a mix of frustration and blind conviction. "My mother wouldn't lie about something like this, Elaine. You must have done something to her." The conversation went in circles, with Leo refusing to believe anything I said. Meredith's manipulative tactics were nothing new, but this was a new low. She had always been demanding, wanting to see her grandchild, a grandchild that Leo and I had struggled to conceive. Every interaction with her was laced with subtle digs and unsolicited advice about fertility, which only added to the pressure I felt. But this accusation was a new kind of hell. Leo and I had met when I was 30, a shy woman overwhelmed by the joy of finally finding someone who seemed to understand me. We married after a whirlwind romance, and I had quit my job to focus on starting a family that seemed like a distant dream now. Leo's trust in his mother was unshakable. It didn't matter that I had been battling health issues due to the relentless workload at my previous job in the apparel industry, or that I had dedicated my life to our shared dream of having a child. In his eyes, his mother's word was gospel. The argument ended with Leo storming out, leaving me alone with my thoughts. I felt a mix of anger, frustration, and a creeping sense of helplessness. Meredith's influence was poisoning our marriage, and I felt increasingly isolated. I had tried to be the perfect wife, supporting Leo while managing a part-time job that I had taken up to regain some sense of independence. But no matter what I did, it was never enough. Meredith's shadow loomed over every aspect of our life, a constant reminder of the child we couldn't have and the expectations we couldn't meet. As I sat there, the weight of the situation settled in. This wasn't just another argument. This was a turning point. I had to find a way to prove my innocence and expose Meredith's lies. But how? Leo had already made up his mind, and without evidence, it was my word against Meredith's. The silence of the house echoed my thoughts, a stark reminder of the loneliness that had crept into my marriage. I realized that this was more than just about clearing my name. It was about taking back control of my life, a life that had slowly been taken over by Meredith's manipulations and Leo's blind allegiance to her. As the evening sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the living room, I knew one thing for certain. I wouldn't let Meredith's deceit destroy me. I would fight back, even if it meant going against the man I once loved. The battle lines were drawn, and it was time to reclaim my story. For weeks after the accusation, my life became a delicate balancing act, teetering between trying to prove my innocence and maintaining a semblance of normalcy. Leo's coldness towards me was like a constant winter chill in our home, yet I held on to a sliver of hope that I could convince him of the truth. One evening, as I was preparing dinner in our eerily quiet kitchen, the phone rang. It was Meredith. Her voice, usually laced with a sickly sweet tone, was unusually sharp. "Elaine, darling, I heard you've been avoiding me. I'm so heartbroken," she said, her words dripping with feigned concern. "Meredith, you know that's not true. Why are you doing this?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Oh, Elaine, always playing the victim. You know, Leo is very upset with you. It's not good for a marriage when the wife is so uncooperative." Her words were like venom, and I felt my frustration boiling over. "Meredith, this has to stop. You're tearing our family apart." There was a pause, and then a chilling laugh. "Oh, my dear, I'm not tearing anything apart. I'm just looking out for my son's best interest. You should be more grateful." The conversation ended with Meredith hanging up, leaving me seething with anger. It was clear that she was reveling in the chaos she had created. In the days that followed, I threw myself into gathering evidence to prove my innocence. I contacted friends, colleagues, anyone who could vouch for my whereabouts on the day of the alleged incident. But the more I searched, the more I realized the futility of my efforts. Meredith's lies were woven with a precision that left no room for doubt in Leo's mind. Amidst this turmoil, I received an unexpected call from an old friend, Diane, who had also had run-ins with Meredith in the past. "Elaine, I heard about what's happening. You need to stand up for yourself. Meredith has always been manipulative, and it's time someone exposed her." Diane's words were a wake-up call. I had spent years tiptoeing around Meredith, trying to be the perfect daughter-in-law, but it had only led to more pain. It was time to take a stand. Fueled by a newfound determination, I started documenting every interaction, every call, every encounter with Meredith. I knew that if I were to expose her lies, I needed indisputable proof. Meanwhile, Leo's indifference towards me grew. Our conversations were limited to mere formalities, and he spent more time at his mother's, tending to her injury. The distance between us widened, and with it my resolve strengthened. One day, as I sat alone at a cafe, pondering my next move, I overheard a conversation at the next table that stopped me in my tracks. A group of women were discussing a local scandal involving a mother-in-law who had faked an injury to control her son. The details were eerily similar to my situation. I approached the group, introducing myself and explaining my predicament. To my astonishment, one of the women, Janet, was a nurse at the hospital where Meredith had been treated. I remember her. She came in for a minor sprain, nothing serious, but she insisted on a wheelchair and made quite a scene. Janet's testimony was the breakthrough I needed. With her willing to speak out, I finally had a chance to prove Meredith's deceit. But more importantly, I had found an ally in my fight against the tyranny of expectations and lies. As I left the cafe, a sense of empowerment washed over me. It was no longer just about clearing my name. It was about exposing the truth and reclaiming my life from the shadows of deceit. The stage was set for a confrontation, and I was ready to face it head-on. The following weeks were a blur of activity. Armed with Janet's testimony and a growing dossier of Meredith's inconsistencies, I felt a mix of anticipation and dread at the looming confrontation. My marriage to Leo was hanging by a thread, each day unraveling it further. But my focus had shifted. It was no longer just about salvaging our relationship. It was about exposing Meredith's manipulative charade. One chilly morning, as the first rays of sunlight pierced through the overcast sky, I decided it was time to confront Leo with the evidence I had gathered. I found him in the living room, lost in thought, staring blankly at the morning news. "Leo, we need to talk." I began, my voice steady, betraying none of the turmoil oil churning inside me. He glanced up, his expression guarded. "What is it now, Elaine?" I handed him the folder filled with my findings, including Janet's statement. "This is the truth about your mother's injury. Janet, a nurse at the hospital, is willing to testify that Meredith only had a minor sprain and exaggerated her condition." Leo leafed through the documents with a skeptical eye, his face a mask of indifference. "And you expect me to believe this? That my own mother would lie about something so serious?" "Yes, because it's the truth," I countered, frustration seeping into my voice. "Your mother has been manipulating us from the start, and it's tearing us apart. Can't you see that?" For a moment, there was a flicker of doubt in Leo's eyes, quickly overshadowed by years of conditioning to never question his mother's word. "Elaine, this is ridiculous. You're just trying to deflect the blame." The conversation quickly escalated, with Leo refusing to acknowledge the possibility of his mother's deceit. His loyalty to Meredith was impenetrable, a fortress built on a foundation of lies and manipulation. Feeling defeated, I retreated, realizing that Leo was lost to me, trapped in Meredith's web of deceit. It was a painful acknowledgement, but it solidified my resolve. If Leo wouldn't listen, perhaps the court of public opinion would. With Janet's encouragement, I reached out to a local journalist known for her investigative pieces on family disputes and manipulation. After several meetings and sharing my evidence, she agreed to write an article about the toxic dynamics of manipulative parents and the impact on marriages, using my situation as a case study without revealing our identities directly. The day the article was published, the town was abuzz with speculation and gossip. The story resonated with many, and whispers of similar experiences began to surface, slowly unraveling the pristine image Meredith had cultivated over the years. Meredith's reaction was swift and venomous. She called me, her voice shaking with rage. "How dare you air our dirty laundry in public, Elaine? You'll pay for this." But this time, I was ready for her. "The truth hurts, doesn't it, Meredith? Maybe it's time you faced the consequences of your actions." Our exchange was cut short as Meredith hung up, but the satisfaction of finally standing up to her was palpable. I had exposed her deceit not just to Leo, but to the world. It was a bittersweet victory, one that came at the cost of my marriage, but it was a price I was willing to pay for my freedom. In the days that followed, Leo remained distant, caught between his loyalty to Meredith and the growing evidence of her manipulation. Our home became a battleground, each day a reminder of the widening chasm between us. But amidst the turmoil, I found strength in my resolve to no longer be a victim of Meredith's machinations. I had taken the first step towards reclaiming my life, and there was no turning back. The conflict had escalated, but so had my determination to see this through to the end, whatever that may be. The article became a catalyst for change, not just within our fractured household, but across the community. It seemed Meredith's web of lies was more extensive than anyone had imagined, touching the lives of those beyond our immediate family. While the public's reaction grew, so did the tension between Leo and me. It was a silent war, with unspoken accusations and icy glances replacing what used to be warm conversations and shared dreams. A few days after the article's publication, I received a call from someone unexpected, Meredith's longtime friend, Paula. Her voice was hesitant, laced with a nervous energy that immediately put me on edge. "Elaine, I need to talk to you. It's about Meredith." We agreed to meet at a quiet cafe, away from prying eyes and eager ears. Paula, a woman I had always seen by Meredith's side, laughing at her jokes and nodding along to her tales, seemed a shadow of her usual self. The moment we sat down, she began to speak, her words tumbling out in a rush. "I've known Meredith for years, but I never wanted to see it. But after reading that article, things started to make sense. The way she would manipulate situations, twist words. I'm so sorry, Elaine." Her apology was sincere, and as she shared stories of Meredith's manipulative tactics, a clearer picture began to form. Meredith had not only lied about her injury, but had a history of deceit, using sympathy and guilt as tools to control those around her. Paula's testimony was a missing piece of the puzzle, providing me with the leverage I needed to take more decisive action. As we parted, she handed me a small, worn-out diary. "I think you should have this. It's Meredith's. I found it among the things she left at my house. Maybe it can help you." The diary was a window into Meredith's twisted world, filled with entries that detailed her manipulative strategies, her disdain for those she deemed unworthy, and, most shockingly, her plans to drive a wedge between Leo and me to maintain her control over him. Armed with this new evidence, I approached Leo, the diary in hand. "Leo, we need to talk. Again." He looked tired, the constant media scrutiny and the community's whispers taking their toll. But when he saw the diary, curiosity replaced the weariness in his eyes. As he read, his expression shifted from skepticism to shock, then to a dawning realization of the truth. This can't be," he murmured, each entry unraveling the image of the mother he thought he knew. "Meredith has been lying to us, Leo, to you. She never wanted us to be happy. Can't you see that now?" My voice was gentle, not wanting to push him further away in this moment of vulnerability. The confrontation was a turning point for Leo. Confronted with undeniable proof of his mother's deceit, he was forced to reconcile the image of the caring mother with the reality of her manipulations. The diary, coupled with Paula's confession and the community's response to the article, painted a picture too vivid to ignore. In the days that followed, Leo became more introspective, the scales of loyalty and truth delicately balanced as he grappled with his feelings of betrayal. Our home, once filled with silence and tension, began to see the first signs of honest communication as Leo started to open up about his feelings of guilt and confusion. The reckoning with Meredith's deceit was not just a personal battle. It was a public unmasking of a woman who had used her influence to manipulate and control. While Leo and I were far from reconciling, the shared understanding of Meredith's true nature became a tentative bridge in the chasm that had formed between us. But the fight was far from over. Meredith, exposed and cornered, was unlikely to retreat quietly. The diary and Paula's testimony were powerful weapons, but in the hands of someone as cunning and desperate as Meredith, they could provoke a dangerous response. I braced myself for the backlash, knowing that the real battle was just beginning. In the aftermath of the revelations, the atmosphere in our home had shifted palpably. Leo, now caught in a storm of his own emotions, struggled with the realizations about his mother. Our conversations, once fraught with tension and accusations, had taken on a new depth, filled with Leo's apologies and admissions of his blindness to Meredith's manipulations. However, the uneasy peace was shattered one evening when Meredith, having learned of her diary's existence and its contents being revealed, arrived at our doorstep, unannounced and seething with fury. "You've crossed a line, Elaine," Meredith hissed as Leo opened the door, her presence filling the room with a cold hostility. "You think you can tear my family apart with your lies and not suffer the consequences?" Leo stepped in front of me, a protective barrier against his mother's vitriol. "Mom, it's over. We know everything. The lies, the manipulation, it ends now." Meredith's eyes flashed with a dangerous intensity, her gaze shifting between Leo and me. "You're choosing her over your own mother, after everything I've done for you?" The confrontation escalated quickly, with Meredith attempting to salvage her crumbling facade, spinning more lies to explain the diary's entries. But her words fell on deaf ears. Leo, for the first time, stood unwavering in his defense of the truth. "This isn't about choosing, Mom. It's about seeing things for what they really are, and what you've done, it's unforgivable." Leo's voice was firm, a stark contrast to the son who had once hung on Meredith's every word. Meredith, realizing her usual tactics were failing, switched tactics, her voice dripping with disdain. "Oh, Elaine, you think you've won, don't you? But I'll make sure you regret this. Both of you." Her threats hung in the air, a chilling promise of further conflict. But there was a sense of desperation in her words, the last gasps of a woman who had lost control. As Meredith stormed out, Leo and I were left in the silence of her wake, the weight of the encounter settling over us. It was a turning point, a clear demarcation of where we stood, not just with Meredith, but with each other. The days that followed were a mix of relief and apprehension. Leo and I began to navigate the remnants of our relationship, attempting to rebuild from the ashes of Meredith's destruction. Conversations were cautious, yet there was an underlying current of hope, a possibility of moving beyond the past. But Meredith was not one to retreat quietly. Her threats materialized in the form of legal notices, a desperate attempt to intimidate us into submission. She claimed defamation, a laughable accusation given the truth of her actions, but a nuisance nonetheless. It was during these turbulent times that I received a call from someone who had become an unlikely ally, Paula. "Elaine, I've been thinking. There's more I can do. I've seen Meredith, this influence, how she's twisted things over the years. I want to help, officially. Maybe a statement, something to support your side if this goes to court." Paula's offer was a beacon of hope, a sign that Meredith's reign of manipulation was truly crumbling. With each person that came forward, Meredith's web of lies unraveled further, exposing the depth of her deceit. Leo and I, united by a common adversary, faced the legal threats head-on, bolstered by the support of those Meredith had wronged. It was a battle fraught with legal intricacies and emotional turmoil, but one we were determined to see through. The showdown with Meredith was more than just a personal vendetta. It was a fight for justice, a declaration that manipulation and deceit would not go unchallenged. And as we stood together, amidst the chaos Meredith had wrought, there was a sense of impending victory, a belief that the truth would prevail. But victory was a distant horizon, and the road ahead was fraught with obstacles. Meredith, in her desperation, was unpredictable, and we knew that the fight was far from over. Yet, in facing her together, Leo and I had crossed a point of no return, stepping into a future where we could finally be free from the shadows of deceit. As the legal battle loomed, the tension in the air was palpable. Meredith's threats had evolved into a tangible challenge, pushing us into a corner we never anticipated. Yet it was in this corner, backed against the wall, that Leo and I found an unexpected strength in unity. Our lawyer, a seasoned professional with a keen eye for dissecting manipulative tactics, was our guide through the murky waters of legal proceedings. "The truth is on your side," she reassured us during one of our strategy meetings. Meredith's history of manipulation, corroborated by witnesses and her own diary, paints a clear picture. We'll make sure the court sees that. The day of the preliminary hearing arrived, a culmination of weeks of preparation and anxiety. As we entered the courtroom, Meredith's presence was already there, a dark cloud hanging over the proceedings. Her posture was rigid, the embodiment of defiance, but the desperation in her eyes betrayed her. The hearing unfolded, with each side presenting their preliminary arguments. Our lawyer methodically dismantled Meredith's claims, laying bare the foundation of lies upon which they were built. Paula's statement, coupled with Janet's testimony and the diary's entries, painted a damning portrait of Meredith's character. Meredith's lawyer attempted to counter, painting her as a misunderstood mother caught in a web of misunderstandings, but the evidence was overwhelming, the narrative too consistent to ignore. As the judge announced a recess, Meredith approached us, her approach guarded by the courtroom's decorum but her intent clear. "This isn't over," she whispered, a venomous promise. "You think you've won, but I'll never let this go." Leo, standing firm by my side, met his mother's gaze with a resolve I had never seen in him before. "It's already over, Mom. It's time you accepted that." The weeks that followed were a testament to the resilience of truth. As the legal proceedings dragged on, the community's support became our lifeline. Stories of Meredith's manipulative endeavors began to surface, a chorus of voices lending strength to our case. Finally, the day of the verdict arrived. The courtroom was heavy with anticipation as the judge took her seat, the quiet murmur of the audience fading into silence. "In light of the evidence presented, the court finds in favor of Elaine and Leo," the judge announced, her voice echoing through the room. "The claims of defamation are dismissed, and the plaintiff is ordered to pay for all legal fees incurred." The relief that washed over us was indescribable, a wave of vindication after months of turmoil. But the victory was bittersweet, the cost of Meredith's deception far greater than any legal fees. Outside the courtroom, Leo and I shared a moment of quiet reflection. "I'm sorry it took me so long to see the truth," Leo said, his voice heavy with emotion. "I should have believed you from the start." "It's over now," I replied, a sense of closure enveloping us. We can finally move on. But moving on wasn't as simple as leaving the courtroom behind. Meredith's defeat in court did little to quell her bitterness, her attempts at reconciliation tinged with the same manipulative undertones that had led us to this point. Yet, the victory had shifted something fundamental between Leo and me. The battle against Meredith's deceit had forged a bond of trust and understanding, a foundation upon which we could start to rebuild. The price of Meredith's deception was steep, a reminder of the damage wrought by manipulation and lies. But it also served as a testament to the power of truth, a beacon of hope for those caught in the shadow of deceit. As we walked away from the courthouse, the future uncertain but ours to shape, I realized that this chapter of our lives was closing. A new chapter was beginning, one where the shadows of deceit no longer lurked in every corner, and where the price of deception was known to all. The legal victory over Meredith marked the end of one of the most tumultuous periods in our lives. Yet the aftermath was not a simple return to normalcy. Too much had changed. Leo and I, having been through the crucible of Meredith's machinations, found ourselves standing on the brink of a new beginning. Our relationship fundamentally altered. In the weeks following the verdict, we took cautious steps towards reconciliation, not just as husband and wife, but as individuals who had survived a profound ordeal. The shadows that Meredith had cast over our lives began to recede, replaced by a cautious optimism for the future. However, Meredith herself was not content to fade into obscurity. Her defeat in court did little to dampen her spirit of vengeance. If anything, it seemed to fuel her further. The once covert manipulation became overt attempts to sow discord within our family and among friends. But the community, once under her sway, had seen the truth. Her words lost their power, her actions seen for the desperate flailings they were. One afternoon, as Leo and I were sorting through the remnants of the past months, preparing to move forward, Meredith made what would be her final attempt to regain control. She arrived unannounced, much like she had on that fateful day, her demeanor a mix of defiance and desperation. "I've lost everything because of you," she spat, her eyes boring into mine, seeking to inflict pain. "You think you've won, but I'll make sure you regret this for the rest of your life." But the fear she once instilled in us had dissipated, replaced by a steadfast resolve. Leo stepped forward, his presence a barrier between Meredith and me. "It's over, Mom. You need to accept that and move on. We have." Meredith's gaze shifted between Leo and me, the realization dawning that her power over us was gone. With a final venomous glare, she turned and left, her departure marking the end of her influence in our lives. In the aftermath, Leo and I found solace in each other's strength. The battle had scarred us, but it had also forged a bond built on mutual respect and understanding. We decided to renew our vows, not as a celebration of the past, but as a commitment to the future we would rebuild together. The ceremony was small, a gathering of those who had stood by us through the darkest times. As we spoke our vows, the weight of the past lifted, replaced by a sense of hope. We were not the same people who had married years ago. We were stronger, wiser, and more united than ever before. Meredith's attempts at revenge had, paradoxically, freed us. In seeking to destroy us, she had inadvertently given us the gift of a second chance, one we seized with both hands. Our love, tested by fire, emerged stronger, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. As we looked to the future, the possibilities seemed endless. The pain and turmoil of the past were not forgotten, but they no longer defined us. We were ready to face the world together, our bond unbreakable, our spirits unbound. The story of our struggle against Meredith's deceit became a tale of triumph over adversity, a reminder that truth and love can prevail over the darkest of manipulations. Our liberation from her grasp was not just a victory for us, but a beacon of hope for others ensnared by the manipulations of those they once trusted. In the end, Meredith's legacy was not one of control and fear, but a cautionary tale of the price of deception. And for Leo and me, it was a new beginning, a chance to forge a path free from the shadows, illuminated by the light of truth and the strength of our love.